The quantum communication array hummed with an urgency that hadn't been felt in generations. Commander Michael Rodriguez watched the holographic display, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, as the transmission from the Galactic concordance unfolded in real time. Andromeda Sector 7 was dying. Not metaphorically, not gradually, but with the violent certainty of a cosmic catastrophe that would erase millennia of civilization in mere moments. The hologram flickered with images that defied comprehension. Entire planetary ecosystems collapsing, atmospheric processors imploding, and entire continental networks disintegrating into molecular dust. "We require immediate assistance," the alien transmission repeated, its universal translator struggling to convey the full depth of desperation. The speaker was a verdant collective representative, a species known for their technological superiority and genetic engineering prowess. They were not accustomed to asking for help, let alone begging. Rodriguez remembered the briefings. The Verdant Collective had been the technological pinnacle of galactic civilization for over 3,000 years. They had solved energy crises, terraformed impossible worlds, and maintained a delicate balance across 17 star systems. Their civilization was so advanced that most other species considered them nearly godlike in their capabilities. And now, they were falling apart. The initial reports had been alarming. A cascading ecological failure that defied all known scientific understanding. Their quantum environmental stabilizers, devices so complex that human scientists had spent decades just trying to comprehend their basic operational principles, were failing simultaneously across multiple worlds. 17 primary agricultural planets, the transmission continued, are experiencing complete systemic collapse. Our predictive models show total extinction within 3 standard galactic cycles. Rodriguez's communication specialist, Lieutenant Amanda Parker, leaned forward. Her augmented reality interface was parsing the transmission, breaking down the data streams faster than any human could process. Her fingers danced across holographic displays, pulling apart the layers of information. "Sir," she said quietly, "this isn't just a localized problem. This is a fundamental breakdown of their entire ecological infrastructure." The verdant representative continued, his translucent form flickering with what could only be described as pure, unbridled terror. It was an emotion Rodriguez had never seen in a species known for their emotional control and scientific detachment. "We have exhausted all known technological solutions," the alien said. The translation matrix captured not just words, but emotional undertones. A hint of shame, a profound sense of failure that seemed to transcend their entire civilization's understanding of itself. Rodriguez knew the Concordance's reputation. They were not a unified government in the human sense, but a complex network of advanced civilizations that had long since moved beyond traditional concepts of war, competition, or individual sovereignty. They solved problems through collective technological innovation, sharing knowledge and resources with the efficiency that made human international cooperation look like a child's playground negotiation. And now they were asking humanity for help. The irony was not lost on Rodriguez. Humanity had been considered a relatively young, somewhat primitive species by galactic standards. Their inclusion in the Concordance had been more a matter of diplomatic courtesy than genuine technological respect. Humans were seen as passionate, unpredictable, and somewhat crude in their approach to scientific problem-solving. But they were also known for something else, something the transmission didn't explicitly mention, but which hung in the quantum communication like an unspoken challenge. Adaptability. "Transmit our standard response," Rodriguez said to Parker, his voice calm and measured. Lieutenant Parker raised an eyebrow. The standard response was a simple, cryptic message that had become something of a running joke among galactic civilizations. "Help is coming," she repeated, her fingers executing the transmission protocol. The alien representative's holographic form seemed to pause, confusion evident in the subtle shifts of its translucent molecular structure. This was not the detailed technological proposal they had expected. This was not a comprehensive rescue plan with intricate scientific schematics. This was a promise. As the transmission ended, Rodriguez turned to the vast window overlooking Earth's orbital defense grid. Something was coming. Something that would challenge everything the Galactic Concordance thought they understood about humanity. And it would arrive exactly when it was needed most. The first glimpse of the human response caught the Galactic Concordance completely off guard. At the edge of the solar system, a fleet assembled that defied every conventional understanding of military or rescue operations. These were not sleek, uniform vessels designed for interstellar combat. They were a patchwork of retrofitted ships, each telling a story of human ingenuity and determination. The lead vessel, the RSS Resilience, had once been a decommissioned medical research ship. Now, it bore the marks of extensive modifications, quantum computing arrays grafted onto its hull, experimental adaptive shielding that seemed to shimmer and change with each passing moment. Its bridge was a testament to human diversity, a crew that would have been considered non-standard by any other civilization's military protocols. Captain Emily Winters stood at the center of the bridge, her advanced prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the ship's navigation systems. The arm was a marvel of human medical engineering, a quantum-linked neural interface that responded to her thoughts with millisecond precision. Where most would see a disability, she represented the pinnacle of human adaptive technology. Beside her, Jason Nakamura worked silently, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. Diagnosed with nonverbal autism in his childhood, he had become the fleet's primary communication and data analysis specialist. His neural implants processed information at speeds that would make most supercomputers look obsolete. The ship's medical bay was equally unconventional. Dr. Rachel Thompson, battling stage 4 leukemia, led a team of medical specialists who were themselves patients in various stages of treatment. Their experimental medical technologies were not just survival mechanisms. They were the fleet's primary problem-solving toolkit. Communications Officer Samuel Johnson, a veteran with advanced PTSD management implants, monitored the quantum communication channels. His prosthetic eyes, far more advanced than any standard biological or cybernetic enhancement, scanned multiple dimensional communication spectra simultaneously. The fleet consisted of 7 primary vessels, each more unusual than the last. The RSS Hope was crewed entirely by elderly veterans, their decades of strategic experience augmented by cutting-edge neural preservation technologies. The RSS Adaptation carried a team of young engineers with various genetic and neurological conditions, their unique perspectives transforming potential limitations into unprecedented problem-solving capabilities. Inside the Galactic Concordance's primary observation station, Commander Michael Rodriguez watched the fleet's preparation with a mixture of pride and anticipation. The alien observers were bewildered. Where were the massive battleships? The advanced weapon systems? This looked more like a medical research expedition than a rescue mission. They've allocated their entire experimental medical and adaptive technology fleet, Lieutenant Amanda Parker observed, her fingers tracing the fleet's unusual configuration. It's like they're sending their most vulnerable as their primary response team. The alien diplomatic corps couldn't comprehend the strategy. Commander Zara Alk of the Verdant Collective studied the human fleet's configuration, her sophisticated analysis algorithms struggling to make sense of the deployment. "This makes no tactical sense," she muttered to her second-in-command. "They're sending individuals who would be considered non-functional in our society. Elderly individuals, people with severe medical conditions, neurologically diverse specialists." But humanity knew something the Concordance had forgotten. Vulnerability was not a weakness, it was the most sophisticated form of strength. As the fleet prepared for faster-than-light translation, each ship underwent final system checks. The RSS Resilience's bridge was a symphony of human potential. Captain Winters ran her quantum-linked prosthetic hand over the main navigation console, feeling the ship's systems respond to her touch. Jason Nakamura's communication arrays began to pulse with a complex harmonic frequency, a communication method so unique that it would take the Concordance years to even begin understanding its complexity. Dr. Rachel Thompson's medical team prepared experimental regenerative technologies that challenged everything known about ecological restoration. The fleet was more than a rescue mission. It was a statement, a declaration of what humanity truly represented. As the quantum drives spooled up, preparing to tear through the fabric of space-time, Commander Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. The Galactic Concordance had asked for help. They were about to receive something far more profound than a simple rescue. They were about to witness the true meaning of human potential. The moment of translation tore through the fabric of space-time, like a whisper of possibility. Where other civilizations saw a rescue mission, the human fleet saw an opportunity. As they emerged near the failing verdant worlds, the quantum sensors began to paint a picture of devastation that would have broken lesser species. Captain Emily Winters studied the holographic displays, her prosthetic arm interfacing with the ship's systems in a dance of human-machine symbiosis. The planetary scans revealed a catastrophe beyond comprehension. Entire continental ecosystems were collapsing at a molecular level, with environmental systems breaking down faster than any known scientific model could predict. "Jason," she called out, "run a multi-dimensional pattern analysis." Jason Nakamura's fingers blurred across his interface. Where most would see chaos, he saw patterns, intricate, beautiful, and terrifyingly complex. His neural implants processed information at speeds that made the Verdant Collective's most advanced computers look like primitive calculators. Quantum destabilization. He communicated through his neural link, a series of complex data visualizations appearing across the bridge's displays. Not random, systemic, intentional. Dr. Rachel Thompson approached the analysis, her body weakened by cancer, but her mind sharper than ever. The experimental treatments keeping her alive had transformed her into something more than human, a living, breathing computational system that saw biological processes as intricate mathematical equations. "It's a cascade failure," she murmured, her augmented medical interface overlaying biological data onto the planetary scans. "But not accidental. This looks like a deliberate ecological warfare technique." The bridge fell silent. The implications were staggering. Aboard the RSS Hope, the veteran crew began to piece together a strategic approach. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez, no relation to the Earthside commander, had spent decades studying unconventional warfare. His team of elderly veterans, augmented with neural preservation technologies, represented generations of strategic thinking. "We're not looking at a natural disaster," he transmitted to the fleet. "This is a targeted ecological collapse. Someone, or something, is systematically destroying these worlds." The verdant observation teams watched in disbelief. The human fleet wasn't responding with conventional rescue protocols. They were analyzing, adapting, transforming the very understanding of the crisis. Samuel Johnson's advanced communication systems began to pick up subtle quantum communication signatures that the Verdant had missed entirely. His PTSD management implants, designed to process complex emotional and sensory information, allowed him to detect communication patterns that existed between the molecular structures of the dying planets. "There's something here," he reported, his prosthetic eyes scanning multiple dimensional communication spectra. "A language. No, not a language. A conversation happening at a molecular level." Captain Winters understood immediately. This wasn't just a rescue mission. This was first contact of a completely unprecedented type. The RSS adaptation moved into position, its crew of young engineers with various neurological conditions beginning to deploy experimental ecological restoration drones. Each drone was a marvel of human engineering. Adaptive systems that could respond to environmental changes in milliseconds, guided by neural interfaces that transformed potential limitations into unprecedented problem-solving capabilities. Jason Nakamura's communication analysis revealed the first breakthrough. The planetary collapse wasn't just a physical phenomenon. It was a form of communication. The dying ecosystems were trying to tell something, sending out complex molecular signals that no other civilization had been able to interpret. "We're not here to rescue," Dr. Thompson realized, her medical interface pulsing with newfound understanding. "We're here to communicate." The verdant observation team watched in growing amazement. The human fleet moved with a fluidity that defied their understanding of rescue operations. Where the Concordants would have deployed massive terraforming equipment, the humans were using something far more sophisticated: adaptive intelligence that could respond to the planet's needs in real time. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez's veteran team began to overlay historical ecological restoration techniques, lessons learned from Earth's own environmental challenges, onto the planetary scans. Climate recovery strategies from regions ravaged by pollution, restoration techniques from areas decimated by industrial collapse, biological rehabilitation methods developed in the most challenging environments on Earth. Captain Winters watched the data flow, her prosthetic arm interfacing with the ship's systems. This was more than a mission. This was a conversation with an entire planetary ecosystem. "We're listening," she transmitted. A simple message, but in the vast, complex language of molecular communication, it meant everything. The first response came not from the verdant observers, but from the planet itself, a quantum pulse of information that would change everything humanity understood about life, communication, and survival. The quantum pulse hit the human fleet like a wave of pure information. Dr. Rachel Thompson's body, ravaged by cancer, but augmented by experimental treatments, became the primary interface. Her neural implants transformed the molecular communication into visual and computational data that spread across the fleet's systems faster than any alien technology could comprehend. "It's alive," she whispered, her medical diagnostic interfaces working overtime. The planetary ecosystem wasn't just dying. It was communicating a complex narrative of systematic destruction that defied everything the verdant collective understood about planetary health. Jason Nakamura's communication arrays began to decode the quantum signals. Where most would see incomprehensible data, he saw a language, intricate, beautiful, and horrifyingly precise. His neural implants, designed to process information in ways traditional computers could never achieve, started to map out the ecosystem's distress signals. The RSS Resilience's bridge became a hub of unprecedented scientific discovery. Captain Emily Winters watched as her diverse crew transformed a seemingly hopeless situation into a complex problem waiting to be solved. "The planet is trying to tell us something," Samuel Johnson reported, his advanced communication systems parsing quantum-level information. His PTSD management implants, designed to process complex sensory input, allowed him to detect communication patterns invisible to other species. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez's veteran team began overlaying historical ecological restoration techniques onto the emerging data. Decades of experience in environmental rehabilitation, from Earth's most challenging restoration projects, provided unexpected insights. The verdant observation team watched in growing disbelief. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a geneticist specializing in adaptive medical technologies, approached the holographic displays. Her own rare genetic condition had led her to develop unprecedented understanding of molecular adaptation. Where most scientists saw a dying planet, she saw a complex living system fighting for survival. "This isn't a natural collapse," she transmitted to the fleet. "This is a targeted ecological warfare technique. The planet is being systematically dismantled at a molecular level." The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young engineer on the RSS Adaptation, diagnosed with a rare neurological condition that gave her extraordinary spatial reasoning skills, began to map out the planetary destruction patterns. Her neural interface allowed her to see multidimensional connections that no traditional scientific approach could detect. "There's a pattern," she communicated through the fleet's neural network. "A deliberate, systematic deconstruction of planetary ecosystems." The verdant collective's lead scientist, Commander Zarok, could barely process what she was witnessing. The human fleet wasn't approaching this as a traditional rescue mission. They were treating the entire planet as a complex, living organism, a patient to be understood, not a problem to be solved. Dr. Thompson's medical interface began to reveal the true nature of the planetary collapse. The ecosystem wasn't just dying. It was being systematically dismantled by a form of molecular-level technological warfare that defied conventional understanding. "It's like a cancer," she explained, her own body a living testament to survival against impossible odds. But not of the planet. Something is intentionally destroying the ecological infrastructure. Jason Nakamura's communication analysis revealed the first comprehensive breakthrough. The molecular signals weren't just distress calls. They were a complex language of survival, a plea for understanding that no other civilization had been able to interpret. The RSS Hope deployed its first set of adaptive restoration drones. These were not traditional terraforming devices. Each drone was a marvel of human medical and ecological engineering. Adaptive systems that could respond to environmental changes in milliseconds, guided by neural interfaces that transformed potential limitations into unprecedented problem-solving capabilities. Samuel Johnson's communication systems began to establish a rudimentary dialogue with the planetary ecosystem. His prosthetic eyes, far more advanced than any standard biological or cybernetic enhancement, scanned multiple-dimensional communication spectra simultaneously. "We're establishing first contact," he reported, his voice calm and steady. "Not with a species, with an entire planetary system." The Verdant observation team watched in growing amazement. The human fleet moved with a fluidity that defied their understanding of rescue operations. Where the Concordants would have deployed massive terraforming equipment, the humans were using something far more sophisticated, adaptive intelligence that could respond to the planet's needs in real time. Captain Winters watched the data flow, her prosthetic arm interfacing with the ship's systems. This was more than a mission of rescue. This was a mission of understanding. The first comprehensive planetary scan revealed a truth that would change everything. The ecological collapse was not a natural disaster. It was an intentional act of molecular-level technological warfare. And humanity had just discovered a way to fight back. The revelation spread through the galactic concordance like a quantum shockwave. Molecular-level technological warfare was a concept so alien, so incomprehensible, that it threatened the very foundation of the Concordance's understanding of interstellar conflict. The human fleet had uncovered something far more terrifying than a simple planetary collapse. They had discovered a systematic method of ecological destruction that threatened the entire galactic ecosystem. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez assembled a briefing on the RSS Hope. His team of veteran specialists represented centuries of combined strategic experience, augmented by neural preservation technologies that kept their minds razor-sharp. Each member brought a unique perspective, shaped by decades of complex problem-solving. "This isn't just about saving one planet," he explained, his holographic presentation revealing intricate molecular warfare patterns. "This is about understanding a new form of interstellar conflict that threatens the entire galactic ecosystem." Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached the display, her rare genetic condition giving her insights that traditional scientists could never comprehend. She highlighted molecular communication patterns that revealed a chilling truth. The planetary destruction was not random. It was a precise, targeted assault on the fundamental building blocks of planetary life. Captain Emily Winters watched the analysis, her prosthetic arm interfacing with the ship's systems. The human fleet was doing something no other civilization had managed, treating an entire planetary ecosystem as a living, communicative entity. Jason Nakamura's communication arrays continued to decode the quantum signals. His neural implants processed information at speeds that made the Verdant Collective's most advanced computers look like primitive calculators. Where most would see chaos, he saw patterns, intricate, beautiful, and terrifyingly complex. The ecosystem is fighting back. He communicated through the fleet's neural network. His nonverbal communication, once considered a limitation, had become the most sophisticated translation method in the galaxy. The Verdant observation team watched in growing amazement. Commander Zura Alk could barely process what she was witnessing. The human approach defied every conventional understanding of scientific investigation, rescue operations, and interstellar diplomacy. Samuel Johnson's advanced communication systems began to reveal the deeper layers of the planetary crisis. His PTSD management implants, designed to process complex emotional and sensory information, allowed him to detect communication patterns that existed between the molecular structures of the dying planet. Dr. Rachel Thompson's medical interface provided the most shocking insight. The ecological collapse was not just a physical phenomenon. It was a form of systemic attack that targeted the fundamental life-supporting mechanisms of entire planetary systems. "It's like a cancer," she explained, her own body a living testament to survival against impossible odds. But not of the planet. Something is intentionally destroying the ecological infrastructure at its most fundamental level. The young engineers aboard the RSS Adaptation began to develop adaptive restoration technologies that challenged everything the Concordans understood about ecological preservation. Each team member's unique neurological perspective became a tool for unprecedented problem-solving. Lieutenant Commander Aria Rodriguez, the engineer with extraordinary spatial reasoning skills, developed a quantum stabilization protocol that could potentially counteract the molecular-level destruction. Her rare genetic condition, once considered a limitation, had become humanity's most powerful scientific asset. The fleet's approach was fundamentally different from any previous rescue mission in galactic history. Where other civilizations would have deployed massive technological interventions, the humans were engaging in a form of planetary communication and restoration that was more akin to medical treatment than traditional ecological engineering. "We're not just trying to save the planet," Captain Winters transmitted to the Verdant observation team. "We're trying to understand its language of survival." The Concordance's scientific protocols began to break down. The human fleet was challenging every fundamental assumption about interstellar communication, ecological preservation, and the nature of intelligent life. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's genetic analysis revealed the most profound discovery yet. The molecular warfare technique was not just destroying planetary ecosystems. It was a method of systematic resource extraction that threatened the entire galactic biosphere. Jason Nakamura's communication breakthrough provided the first comprehensive understanding of the attack's origins. The molecular destruction was a form of advanced technological harvesting, a method of extracting planetary resources that completely destroyed the planet's ability to sustain life. As the human fleet continued its mission, the Galactic Concordance watched in growing understanding. This was more than a rescue operation. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species interact with planetary ecosystems. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as interpreters, translating the language of survival at a molecular level. Catastrophe struck with the precision of a surgical instrument. A massive quantum destabilization wave erupted across the planetary system, threatening to completely annihilate everything the human fleet had begun to understand. The molecular communication networks they had painstakingly established began to collapse, their delicate quantum connections shredding like tissue paper in a hurricane. "We're losing connection," Samuel Johnson shouted, his advanced communication systems struggling to maintain even the most basic quantum links. His PTSD management implants worked overtime, processing the incoming chaos with a level of emotional regulation that would have been impossible for any biological system. Captain Emily Winters gripped the command console, her prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the ship's emergency systems. The RSS Resilience shuddered, quantum stabilizers fighting against the unprecedented molecular assault. Lieutenant Commander Aria Rodriguez saw the pattern first. Her extraordinary spatial reasoning skills, a result of her rare genetic condition, revealed something that no other observer could comprehend. The destabilization wasn't random. It was a targeted assault designed to erase all traces of the ecosystem's communication network. "It's a kill switch," she transmitted to the fleet. "Someone doesn't want us to understand what's happening here." Dr. Rachel Thompson's medical interface began to break down the molecular assault. Her body, kept alive by experimental cancer treatments, became a living computational system that could process the quantum destruction in real time. The attack was surgical, precise, designed to eliminate all possibility of reconstruction or understanding. Jason Nakamura's neural implants worked at speeds that defied conventional computational limits. Where most would see total system failure, he saw a complex language of destruction, a communication method so advanced it was essentially a weapon. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez assembled the fleet's emergency response team. Decades of military strategic experience, augmented by neural preservation technologies, kicked into high gear. This was no longer a rescue mission. This was a battle for survival, not just of a planet, but potentially of an entire galactic ecosystem. The Verdant observation team watched in horror as the human fleet refused to surrender. Adaptive Protocol Delta 9, Captain Winters commanded. It was a procedure developed during humanity's most challenging ecological restoration projects, a last resort method that had never been tested in an interstellar context. The RSS Hope deployed its most experimental technologies, adaptive restoration drones, each guided by the neural interfaces of veterans who had spent decades understanding complex ecological systems, began to weave a quantum stabilization network. It was less a technological intervention and more a form of molecular acupuncture, precise, intuitive, almost organic in its approach. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's genetic analysis revealed the true nature of the attack. The molecular destruction was not just a weapon. It was a method of resource extraction so advanced that it essentially murdered entire planetary ecosystems, leaving nothing but raw molecular components behind. Samuel Johnson's communication systems detected something extraordinary. Beneath the quantum destruction, a faint signal persisted, a molecular whisper of survival that refused to be silenced. "We're not losing," Jason Nakamura communicated. "We're being challenged." The young engineers aboard the RSS Adaptation began to develop a counter-protocol. Each team member's unique neurological perspective became a weapon against the molecular assault. Adaptive technologies that had been developed to help individuals overcome physical limitations now became tools of planetary restoration. Lieutenant Commander Aria Rodriguez's quantum stabilization protocol began to take shape. It was a solution so unexpected, so fundamentally different from any known scientific approach, that it challenged everything the Galactic Concordance understood about ecological preservation. The quantum destabilization wave began to slow, not through brute force or massive technological intervention, but through a complex, adaptive response that treated the planetary ecosystem as a living, communicative entity. Captain Winters watched the data flow, her prosthetic arm interfacing with systems that were pushing the boundaries of known science. This was more than a mission of rescue. This was a mission of survival, a declaration that humanity's approach to problem-solving was fundamentally different from any other species in the galaxy. The Verdant observation team witnessed something unprecedented. The human fleet was not just surviving the molecular assault, they were beginning to understand it. As the quantum destruction wave began to dissipate, a new understanding emerged. This was not just a battle for a single planet. This was a battle for the fundamental right of ecosystems to survive, to communicate, to exist. Humanity had just introduced the Galactic Concordance to a new form of warfare, one fought not with weapons, but with understanding. The quantum stabilization network spread like a living algorithm. What the Galactic Concordance had dismissed as a makeshift rescue fleet now revealed itself as something far more profound. The human intervention was not a technological solution, but a form of interstellar communication that defied every known scientific principle. Dr. Rachel Thompson's medical interface began to decode the deeper layers of the planetary ecosystem's survival mechanism. Her body, kept alive by experimental cancer treatments, had become more than a human vessel. It was a living computational system that could interpret molecular communication at unprecedented depths. "It's alive," she transmitted to the fleet. Not just the planet, the entire communication network. Jason Nakamura's neural implants processed information at speeds that made the most advanced alien supercomputers look like primitive calculators. Where most would see chaos, he saw a language, intricate, beautiful, and horrifyingly complex. His nonverbal communication, once considered a limitation, had become the most sophisticated translation method in the galactic history. Lieutenant Commander Area Rodriguez's quantum stabilization protocol revealed something extraordinary. The molecular assault wasn't just a weapon of destruction. It was a method of resource extraction, so advanced that it essentially murdered entire planetary ecosystems, leaving nothing but raw molecular components behind. Captain Emily Winters watched the data flow, her prosthetic arm interfacing with systems that were pushing the boundaries of known science. The human fleet was doing something no other civilization had managed, treating an entire planetary ecosystem as a living, communicative entity. The Verdant observation team watched in growing disbelief. Commander Zara Alk of the Verdant Collective could barely process the implications. The human fleet had transformed a seemingly hopeless situation into a complex problem of interstellar communication and ecological restoration. Samuel Johnson's advanced communication systems began to reveal layers of complexity that challenged everything the Concordance understood about planetary life. His PTSD management implants, designed to process complex emotional and sensory information, allowed him to detect communication patterns that existed between the molecular structures of the dying planet. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez assembled the fleet's analytical team. Decades of strategic experience, augmented by neural preservation technologies, provided insights that went far beyond traditional scientific approaches. Each team member brought a unique perspective, shaped by years of complex problem-solving. "We're not just saving a planet," he explained during the briefing. "We're learning its language of survival." The young engineers aboard the RSS Adaptation continued to develop adaptive restoration technologies that challenged fundamental scientific understanding. Each team member's unique neurological perspective became a tool for unprecedented problem-solving. Disabilities that would have been considered limitations in previous centuries had become humanity's most powerful scientific asset. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's genetic analysis revealed the most profound discovery yet. The molecular warfare technique was a sophisticated method of resource extraction that completely dismantled planetary ecosystems at their most fundamental level. But the human fleet was developing a counterlanguage, a way of communicating and preserving ecological integrity that no other civilization had conceived. The quantum communication network began to stabilize, not through massive technological intervention, but through a complex, adaptive response that treated the planetary ecosystem as a living, communicative organism. Jason Nakamura detected the first comprehensive breakthrough. The molecular signals were not just distress calls. They were a complex language of survival, a plea for understanding that no other civilization had been able to interpret. Captain Winters transmitted a message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "We hear you." She communicated through the quantum network. Those 3 words carried more scientific and diplomatic weight than entire volumes of traditional interstellar communication. The Verdant Collective's scientific protocols began to disintegrate. The human fleet was challenging every fundamental assumption about interstellar communication, ecological preservation, and the nature of intelligent life. Samuel Johnson's communication systems detected something extraordinary. Beneath the molecular destruction, a network of survival was emerging. A complex, adaptive system that was learning, growing, communicating. Lieutenant Commander Area Rodriguez's spatial reasoning skills revealed the true nature of the intervention. This was not a rescue mission. This was first contact of the most profound kind. Communication with an entire planetary ecosystem at a molecular level. As the quantum stabilization network continued to spread, the Galactic Concordance began to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. Their strength was not in technological superiority or military might. Their strength was in their ability to understand, to communicate, to see potential where others saw only destruction. The human fleet had done more than save a planet. They had introduced the galaxy to a new way of understanding life itself. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as interpreters, translating the language of survival at the most fundamental level of existence. The transformation began with a quantum whisper. Commander Michael Rodriguez watched from Earth's orbital command center as the human fleet's intervention rippled through the galactic concordance. What had begun as a desperate rescue mission had become something far more profound, a complete reimagining of interstellar communication, ecological preservation, and the very definition of intelligent life. The Verdant Collective's primary scientific council convened an emergency session. Commander Zaraok presented the data, a comprehensive analysis of the human fleet's intervention that challenged every fundamental scientific and diplomatic protocol the Concordance had developed over millennia. They did not just save a planet, she reported, her holographic presentation revealing layers of molecular communication previously thought impossible. They established a form of communication that fundamentally reshapes our understanding of ecological systems. Captain Emily Winters stood before the Concordance's diplomatic council, her prosthetic arm, a marvel of human adaptive technology. Interfacing with their communication systems, she was not just a mission commander. She was a translator, an interpreter of a language that transcended traditional scientific understanding. Jason Nakamura's neural interfaces continued to process the quantum communication network. His nonverbal communication, once considered a limitation, had become the most sophisticated translation method in galactic history. Where most saw chaos, he saw intricate patterns of survival and communication. Dr. Rachel Thompson presented the medical implications. Her body, kept alive by experimental treatments, had become a living testament to human adaptability. The molecular-level intervention they had developed could potentially revolutionize ecological restoration, medical treatment, and interspecies communication. The implications were staggering. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez outlined the strategic perspective. The human approach was not about conquest or technological superiority. It was about understanding, communication, and the fundamental right of ecosystems to survive. We didn't come as conquerors, he explained to the stunned Concordance representatives. We came as listeners. Samuel Johnson's advanced communication systems revealed the deeper layers of the intervention. His PTSD management implants, designed to process complex emotional and sensory information, had become a bridge between molecular communication and comprehensive understanding. The young engineers aboard the RSS Adaptation continued to develop adaptive technologies that challenged everything the Concordance understood about problem-solving. Each team member's unique neurological perspective had become a powerful tool for reimagining scientific approach. Lieutenant Commander Aria Rodriguez's quantum stabilization protocol was studied by scientific teams across multiple star systems. Her rare genetic condition, once considered a limitation, had become humanity's most significant scientific breakthrough. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's genetic analysis revealed a new paradigm of ecological preservation. The molecular communication techniques developed during the mission could potentially restore ecosystems that had been considered irreparably damaged for millennia. The Galactic Concordance began to restructure its entire approach to planetary preservation, interstellar diplomacy, and scientific research. Humanity had introduced a fundamental shift in understanding, a recognition that intelligence was not about technological superiority, but about the ability to listen, to understand, to communicate. Diplomatic protocols were rewritten. Scientific methodologies were completely overhauled. The concept of disability was transformed from a limitation to a unique perspective of extraordinary value. We are not special because we are powerful, Captain Winters transmitted during the final diplomatic session. We are special because we are willing to listen. The quantum communication network that had saved the verdant worlds became a template for future interstellar interactions. It was a living testament to human potential, a bridge between molecular communication and comprehensive understanding. Jason Nakamura's neural interfaces continued to process the vast amounts of data. What had begun as a rescue mission had become a comprehensive reimagining of interstellar communication. Disabilities were now seen as unique perspectives, neural differences as extraordinary computational tools. The fleet that had been considered humanity's most vulnerable became its most powerful diplomatic and scientific mission. The elderly veterans, the individuals with medical conditions, the neurodivergent specialists, they had become the architects of a new understanding of life itself. Commander Michael Rodriguez reflected on the mission's true significance. Humanity had not conquered. They had not dominated. They had listened. They had understood. As the first comprehensive reports reached Earth, a new era of galactic interaction began. The transmission that once begged for help had become a legend, a moment when humanity showed the universe that true strength was not about power, but about the capacity to understand. The universe had asked for salvation. Humanity had offered something far more profound, a new way of seeing.